Don't watch this video if you haven't seen Telltale or The Walking Dead. Say if we just plopped Negan in that spot, which, like I say, I don't think his character would have gone down that route anyway, but if it had, do I think I would have killed Negan? Welcome back to Beyond the Wall. I love this series. This is my one of my favorite parts, genuinely, about recording this content, only because it gives me like an extra platform to talk about things that my brain was thinking or saying post video, during video, pre-video, all these different things, pre-episode of whatever. I get to discuss. So here we are again, discussing. Now, today we have mainly a Telltale Beyond the Wall. So if you're not playing Telltale, if you haven't seen Telltale, this is your warning to not watch this video, because it'll be primarily about Telltale. But then I will also add another disclaimer: if you haven't seen The Walking Dead, this video will highly link with things that have happened in The Walking Dead, are happening in The Walking Dead, that I have experienced, so there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen The Walking Dead, definitely don't watch this video. I just want to quickly add, before we get into these beautiful questions, the reason I have been AFK, say AFK, but maybe like less present for members this week, is because I have had a mind-blowing week. Like, it has been so hard for me to just exist this week. That sounds really dark. It has been a tough week, and I've had a lot going on, and I haven't had time. I work casually. One of my jobs is a casual employment, so I've been called in a lot. I've had an inconsistent schedule. I've had some personal stuff going on, and ultimately my motivation was like way down here in my free time, which is unfortunate for all the members, but I just wanted to get that across. If you're watching this as a non-member, this doesn't apply to you. Obviously, your schedule is consistent every week. Lucky you. But anyway, I just wanted to apologize and thank you all for your patience. I hope this video is a good supplementation while I prepare other videos. Beyond the Wall has gone live just before this. That is about the channel setup. I don't know if anyone's particularly interested. I know there were a couple people asking me regularly what my setup was like and how my channel functioned. That's there for you. So I will be happy to elaborate on that, create more Beyond the Walls in the future, but that's my starting point. So that is there pre this video, and The Walking Dead's being recorded tomorrow. Telltale's being recorded tomorrow or the day after, and then I hope, fingers crossed, as long as I don't get called in a ridiculous amount to work, I pray that the week coming will be busy for the channel. Anyway, let's start nice and hot. Sorry guys, if you notice that my cap like randomly appears in videos, my hair is at a very I think you guys are American. Hair. How would you say hair in America? A lot of people say that when I say that word, they don't hear what I'm saying. British hair, and I'd say my hair, is at a really awkward growth stage, so I hate my fringe. Would Negan be more threatening if Carver never existed and he was in Carver's spot? If Carver wasn't a thing and Negan was in the same situation in Telltale, do I think it would be worse? Now, short answer, no. I actually think Negan in this situation would be far better. The thing is, right, is Carver didn't last very long. So unfortunately for Carver, maybe fortunately for Carver, I have very little to go off. So I'm going off of however many episodes he was present and the very, very little knowledge I got of him, but I had some very significant events, i.e. getting someone to hit a child, massive red flag. What seems to be a weird, manipulative, abusive, controlling relationship with Rebecca, and then obviously kidnapping, imprisonment. Like, there's a lot, right? There's a lot that is way more extreme than what Negan does, like, just for a start. I would argue that Carver is far worse than Negan. At first, when I first met him, I was like, oh, it can't be worse than Negan. But like very, very quickly did my brain go down a path of, oh nah, like I genuinely feel less comfortable than I do on a day-to-day basis watching The Walking Dead with Negan as the antagonist then compared to Telltale. It's weird because Negan is almost, actually, you know what? Negan's very predictable. Well, I'm not going to say that. At times he's unpredictable, but he's very structured. He has rules, and he is survivable. Like, he is livable, survivable, all those different things. If you just want to survive and that's your intention and you're not willing to create an uprising and blah, 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 blah. You guys have heard me say this a million times in The Walking Dead. Negan is survivable. I don't even think if you follow what he does, it's too bad of a place to live. It's just, can you accept the immorality, is that even a word, of doing that? You know, like, I could go way more in depth about that and the complexities of being with Negan and why people still fight with him and blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, he has offered Like, he is leading a group. It's not just like selfish reasons, or he's not just doing it because, or it doesn't even really come across as psychotic. Well, at times it does, but it's the vibe it gives me is it's got a purpose, a reason, and he doesn't do things without provocation. He doesn't do things without reasoning and clearly thinking things out. He is a meticulous person, but he's survivable and blah 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 blah. We don't need to talk too much about Negan, but in comparison to Carver is, gosh, like, unpredictable in the sense that he's just gonna lash out at anyone and everyone for even just threatening his like ego. I almost thought that he had a fragile ego, you know, like it was crazy. And the way he goes from calm to red hot that quickly, like I thought, it's funny because in the last Telltale episode, it was Kenny that got his ass beat. Kenny is usually the one that goes from ice cold to red hot real quickly. And I was like, oh, he's hot-headed, right? Boom, he just makes quick decisions. Carver has just put that thought of mine to rest. Just in that scene alone, the snap, instantaneous snap, and then he can't control himself. He's beating someone to death for really no reason other than defiance. Well, it's not even defiance because Kenny did what he said. So it's not even defiance. It's because of Kenny's reaction. So it's retaliation, and it's almost out of like, oh gosh, you know, like, you're not gonna say that to me and get away with it. You know who I am, like, you know, inflated ego and almost like a god style complex. I'm not saying he does have that, but like I said, I didn't have enough time to break his character apart. But if Negan was in this situation, we would have a structure and rules, and he would be predictable in a sense that there would be ways that you could go about surviving without feeling the constant threat of, oh my god, no, he's gonna do something real messed up, or he's gonna do this, or he's gonna do that. Because if you behave and do as he says and sort of follow along, you're safe, kind of. You know, like, there are some loopholes in that, and I'm not gonna go into all of that, guys, because it's complicated. I also feel like with Negan's sort of motive, like, it comes across as for the group. I spoke quite a lot recently about Negan's motive, like, you're sacrificing the reason to live to survive. You know, that you're taking away the reasons to live so that you can survive. It almost felt like Carver was that, but on steroids. It's not just sacrificing, it's stripping for the sake of stripping it, or killing for the sake of killing, or, like, for example, with that one guy who was just considered weak, he just killed him. I don't think Negan would just kill someone because they're weak. Carver could have let him go. Carver could have put him to work doing something else. He could have done literally anything other than murder the guy, and we're having a slightly different conversation. But he went from red hot and instantaneously because he was weak. And I don't even think he ever planned to invite that guy back into the group. He's got one arm. So if he's talking about mental weakness, surely he considers physical weakness, right? I think he used him, manipulated him, almost dangled a chocolate fish in front of his face and gone, oh yeah, look, you can come back inside if you do this for me, or you do that for me, or if you become my little puppet on strings. He's never going to get close to it. Like, you know, it's like it's attached to his forehead on a stick. Like, he can chase it all he likes. It's only going to remain the same distance away. There are so many facets and levels of difference between Negan and Carver. It's actually kind of mind-blowing to me. So no, they both have their flaws, they both have their problems. We're not going to go into the things I dislike about Negan, you guys already know about them, but there's a lot about Negan I can understand. There's a lot about Negan that I can agree with at times, and then there's a lot about Negan which shows who he was before. Like, you can, like I always spoke about his previous character seeping into who he is today. Now, I don't see that with Carver. I just see a bad person, an evil character, someone who's out for nothing good. So there's the big difference I see. Like, with Negan, I like, sometimes the things he does, I look at it and I go, damn, like, I can almost sense who he was before. I can see it seeping through into him now, as much as it's often disguised by who he's become or how far he's lost himself. But I don't see that at all with Carver. If Negan was in Carver's spot, yes, I think there would be a lot of similarities. This place would function based on trying to survive, and there would be all of that stuff, right? Like the whole our group's most important, surviving to survive. They both come across as survivalists, but if you think of like multiple scales, right? You've got a survivalist scale. They both seem way up here on survivalist scale, but then you've got those other scales of like selfishness. I feel like Carver's further on that scale than Negan is. Everything you can think of that's bad with Negan, put that on a scale and like you think Carver would be a jump forward. I also get this weird feeling like Carver would sacrifice the intentions and the group for his own personal gain. You know, similar to the Governor. You know how the Governor... That's actually a good point, you know. If you combine Negan and the Governor and then exaggerate it all, I kind of see that as Carver. Like, Carver's got a personal motive, which is clearly his child, Rebecca, whatever. The Governor had his own personal motive as well. I don't see that with Negan right now, per se. If you take that and put that little trait into Carver, if it all comes to worse, I feel like Carver would sacrifice the intentions of the group and what's good for the group for his own personal gain, whatever. You know what I mean? I'd rather have Negan there. Would I have killed Negan? Wow, that's a really good question, actually. I don't think Negan would have done that in the first place. Like, we've already seen people try and escape with Negan and they just get punished. Like, he was gonna kill people, Carver. So, I don't think that would have been the scenario anyway. But if we just ignore that, that wouldn't have happened. And say, if we just plopped Negan in that spot, which, like I say, I don't think his character would have gone down that route anyway. But if it had, do I think I would have killed Negan? I don't think I would have done it as easily. There's a really cool thing to think about. I don't think I would have killed him as easily, if at all. When I really think about it, would I have just said, nah, kill him, boom, get rid of him on the spot? You know what? That's actually really scary for me to imagine, because if I get put in that situation, like, I've had all these thoughts about what would the Saviors do if Negan wasn't around, what evil would come of that. All those thoughts which are in previous Beyond the Walls, you guys can go in and watch if you want to watch those. All of that has culminated and I've gone, I'm almost scared to kill Negan because of what it would mean. You know, for all the bad that he is in this world, he does control a lot of the bad. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what? That's a bloody hard question to answer. Maybe I would have done it and regretted it. We're not going to go into that because I'll end up talking for hours. So thank you for that question. That was a very thought-provoking one. Do I think Lee would have done the same thing to Bill just like Kenny did? Maybe Lee would have shot his legs, but I don't know if Lee would have beat him like that. It really depends on how involved Clem was and what Carver did to Clem. You know, when Carver slapped Clem, I don't think Lee would have taken that good at all. Was it Carver or was it the worker? I can't remember. I think maybe it would have gone to the point of like shooting his legs and then leaving. I don't know if he would have beaten him to death. He most certainly wouldn't have done it in front of Clem. But obviously I'm the one who did that and Clem's the one who wanted to say. So I feel like in that moment he probably would have, someone would have shot out his legs or he would have shot out his legs and he would have taken Clem away. Are we talking if Kenny's there as well? Because that's a good question. Do I think Lee would have done the same thing to Bill just like Kenny did? No, I don't think so. But if Kenny's there as well, I think Lee potentially starts it and then Kenny finishes it. Kenny understands what needs to be done in a sense, and Lee wouldn't let Clem see that. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's really hard to... I feel like maybe not at that moment, but maybe further down the line. If they both survive for longer and maybe Carver like maybe in an alternate universe, Carver kills Kenny and then Lee does what Kenny did, something like that. Yes, I can see it in that kind of situation, but not in the situation we just had, not to the same extent. Would you sacrifice yourself if you knew it would save someone else in the group? That is a very, very good question. I've always liked to look at myself and go, I would do what's right in a moment of choice. If I had to live or die, I feel like I would make the right decision, but the right decision is, it's hard to tell, because would I sacrifice myself to save a character I don't like, or a character that's not good or evil or has done bad things? I don't know. It really depends, because the apocalypse changes you know, like right now, if you stood me in front of, I don't know, like a rapist, would I jump in front of a bullet for them? My brain is sitting here going like, I wouldn't want to, but I don't know if I'd have enough time to think about it. So when I was younger, it's quite funny that you asked this, because when I was younger, I used to ask the weirdest questions, Like, I used to get, like, my dad used to get really frustrated with me, because I'd ask questions like, oh, what would happen if Rangitoto erupted? Rangitoto's a volcano in Auckland where I live. What would happen if Rangitoto erupted? Would it reach our house? Would we survive? Would the ash cloud reach our house? Would the lava reach our house? All these different things like that. Or, Dad, have you ever been struck by lightning? And, like, I asked those questions like clockwork, and I used to get the same answers like, I don't know. I used to always bring this scenario up in my head. If someone pulled a gun, I used to be really morally driven, which is probably why I'm vegan and probably why I've gone down all these routes. But I used to think to myself that I would jump in front of a bullet for anybody, no matter the situation. Like, I feel like, yes, it would scare me, but in the moment, sort of the adrenaline would take over and I would just do it because we wouldn't have much time to think about it. Not really. I don't know, because my brain's going, yeah, I'd probably still do that, because in the hope that they could change, or in the hope that, like, I'd rather me than them. Just generally, because I'm not going to know anything about it, right? I won't be around to experience it if I'm dead, which I know sounds selfish, but I don't know. So I think yes, but it just depends on who. Someone else in our group? Yes. 100%. I think that's kind of shown in our game, you know, because like every time I've come across a decision where Clem can either like sit back and just not do anything, say something, or try and intervene, I've intervened immediately. I think that kind of shows slightly. But then who knows? So answer that one. Oh, we're on the last set of questions. Who are your top 3 characters in Telltale? That's really easy. Clem, Lee, Kenny. In order? You know what's really funny? At first, in the season 1, if you asked me this question, I probably wouldn't have said Kenny. Like, if you go back, I genuinely had trouble accepting Kenny as a character. But so much has bloody changed, and I almost want to do a Beyond the Wall about my progression with Kenny as a character. I mean, could we talk about it now? We are kind of pushing time, but I've kind of already spoken about it. If you guys want a Beyond the Wall when I just talk about Kenny to Kenny, why? Like, why did my thoughts change so drastically? Long story short, I learned the importance of having someone like Kenny around, and he is, at the end of the day, part of family, and I learned a lot about his character towards the very last few moments he had in season 1. A lot about his character. I connected with his character right before we lost him, so obviously, like, that changed everything. And when I saw him again, the whole feeling, the whole network of my brain had already, like, I'd already changed my view on him, presuming he was dead. So when he came back, it's like he's a new character. Like, I described him as Kenny 2.0. So yeah, Kenny's now up there, definitely. I don't think I can tell you who I prefer more, Lee or Kenny now. I know Clem's my favorite, and I think that's just because, like, she's just a real badass character as a kid, like, just like Carl. That's why Carl's one of my favorite characters. But I'd probably put Clem on top, and then I'd have to argue that I couldn't decide between Lee and Kenny now. Like, that's how crazy Kenny's redemption arc for me has been. I hope you guys have enjoyed that, by the way. I know a lot of people early on were, like, really unhappy with my Kenny playthrough. So much has changed, and it's so good. It's heartwarming for me. That's why I love this game. This game is written so much better than I ever expected. What characters do you feel have had the best character development, or who do you think will have the best development? Kenny, 100%. I've just explained to you about with Kenny, and obviously at first his character sort of almost came across as selfish, but the more I learned about him, the more I realized he was being selfless all along. It was about his family, his kid, it was about the group, and genuinely, like I said in the most recent episode of Telltale, like, now I can see it clear as day. When Kenny argues with people and is hot-headed, and you're sitting there going, oh, please, Kenny, just be quiet. One thing I've kind of learned is he's saying everything he's saying and doing everything he's doing for us. Like, it's not for him. He's, like, none of this is for Kenny. And I realized that when he lost his family, and I think that's been written so perfectly. He almost, comes across as hot-headed, selfish. I don't know if you call it selfish, but, like, my family's all that matters driven, which is, it comes across like that, and hot-headed and blah, blah, blah. It almost blossoms like a flower, and you can see everything. Like, if I replayed it, I could go, oh my god. Like, it's almost like making me want to cry, because I just think to myself, misjudging a character that is like this is like, you almost feel guilty. Like, inside you feel guilty, and I think the game has done that so perfectly and purposefully. I know a lot of people obviously comment in hindsight and go, nah, Kenny this, Kenny that, Kenny the other, but you guys have played the whole game, so I always preach, try not to disagree without considering your viewpoint of hindsight, because it is a very, very powerful thing, which is a bias, right? So, but anyway, Kenny, 100%, one of the most developed characters. The only other one I can think of, which is sort of my mind is switcherooed on, is Rebecca. At first, for me, Rebecca was real, like, hard to like straight away, and then it's again like boom, you realize, damn, like she's emotional because this is her family, this is survival, this is her life, she doesn't want to lose more people. And then you start to think in a greater concept of The Walking Dead, of characters. If you start applying that kind of logic to other characters, let's use Dwight as an example, you start to realize to yourself, it's so much more than just good and bad. Like, it's so much more than just good and bad. And then yes, my brain has gone down a route of, could I have the same feeling about Negan? Could I reconsider Negan's perspective? That's why my view on him is softening. Like, I'm not saying it's there yet, because for all I know, he could murder 6 more of our characters and I'm going to hate him till eternity. For all eternity. But I'm open-minded. Like, this one thing the game has taught me and the show has taught me is to be open-minded and to think and consider. The funny thing is Early Dan would've. That's the beauty of the show. They've taken Early Dan, which I'm sure a lot of you probably really liked. They've stripped him of his morality, and they've gone, we're gonna beat you down to the point where you feel like the only thing that matters is your group, and you will do anything to protect them, and no one else matters, and we'll close your mind off to possibility. We'll cut off any kind of consideration you give to other characters. We will basically make your world very black and white, good, bad. The show has done that so perfectly. I think it got to like season 7, and season 7 was hard. Season 7 was probably the hardest season of The Walking Dead to watch, because you just feel so brutalized and stripped to an animal almost. You feel like, it's really hard to explain, and it's scary because you feel anger, frustration, anxiety, all these emotions are just constant. Dwight has been a phenomenal character in terms of being a symbol for redemption, forgiveness, all those kinds of things. And his character alone has reset this kind of emotion in me. And it's sort of forcing me to start reconsidering. And that includes Negan. That includes everyone. So yeah, those characters. Anyway, like, I just went on a massive rant, hey? And if I could bring back one character from any previous episode or season to join the group now, who would it be and why? Join the group from any previous season. Lee. Yes, that's actually really easy. Lee. The only problem with bringing Lee back is I think we wouldn't have we wouldn't see the development that we're seeing with Kenny as well as we are. Like, it would be quite hard to like balance having those two characters like that, because it almost feels like Kenny has stepped up to where Lee was for Clem. You know what I mean? So, but if I could, obviously I'd bring back Lee. He had everything right at heart, and he was such a morally driven character. And it's those characters that I really, really relate to, you know, like Herschel, Glenn. If you think Herschel, Glenn, Lee, all those kinds of characters, damn, I just love them, man. And I think that's it, guys. That's all we've got, eh? Damn. You know what? This has been a long Beyond the War. 33 minutes of talking. Probably cut it down to like 20 minutes. So pretty beefy. So I will wrap this up, guys. If you enjoyed as ever, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for new content every single week. And of course, follow the Instagram, Daniel Reed with 2 Ds. And as ever, thank you all so much for your patience, members especially, for waiting out this week with everything that's going on. I highly appreciate it. If you don't follow the Instagram, like I've just mentioned, try and do that if you can, if you have Instagram, because literally I post stories on there regularly. I update more often there regularly. Arguably, more often than not, that's the first point of contact. You can't, unfortunately, I've had to shut my DMs off because of spoilers and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's the best place to be. And the more people I get there, the more I'll turn it into like a channel thing. At one point, I did try to make a channel on Instagram and it didn't really work out. If I just convert my personal to like a personal/channel, that'd be fantastic. But anyway, I'm really in a good mood, eh? This is what I needed. This is really what I needed after this week. Thank you for everyone that contributed to that, and couldn't be more grateful. But yeah, that is all from me, guys. As ever, it's been more Dan. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.